Hey guys, in this video we're going to add animations for sleeping, so we can also lie down in bed, and we're going to build a functionality on top of the existing one we have created for sitting down. First thing we will need is a couple of the new animations. So it's this one, lie down, which goes from sitting position to sleeping, and the second one is just sleeping idle. So both of these you can get at Mixamo, and just search for lying down or something, it should come up. I have already retargeted mine and also changed them in a sequencer. So what you need to do, again, I don't want to do it on a video because it takes a long time and we have done it in a previous one. You just need to position the starting position of the next animation always to the beginning position of the next one. So basically we will go from sitting down to lying down, and then from lying down we will go to sleep idle. So all of them needs to be positioned in the same place. And then what I have done, I have changed the root for all of the animations to be on the default position, and as you can see it never moves. I've done it for all of them, even the sit down, and that actually helps with not fighting for space when you're sitting down with the chairs or anything like that. So if you want to get these animations that I've edited, you can get them on my Patreon. Otherwise you need to do a little bit more work because these ones are a bit more finicky. You need to actually position the body a little bit lower and stuff like that. But it's not difficult again. So once you have done that, you will have these basically two, so lie down and sleep. And we're going to first open it up, go to asset details and make sure the root motion is enabled. Go to the sleep idle and also do enable root motion here. And then we're going to create montages, so right click, create anim montage, same name. And from the sleep idle, right click, create anim montage. Then on these montages, make sure we don't forget to change this inertialization, so it is a little bit more smoother blending between animations. Also do it for this one. And then one more thing, for the sleep idle, we need to go to montage section and here loop the default one. Save all so you don't lose your progress. And then now we have these animations. Just gonna show you what it does if you set up the root correctly. It actually doesn't slide at all on the ground. You can see my animation is like now very nice and it stays on the same spot when he's sitting down. We want to first create the asset for sleeping, so like bed. And for that, let's just drag out this sit idle. I'm going to press end. So he positioned the character on the ground. And then let's go to modeling tools. And again, just create some default bed. So box. Add it here. I think the height was 40 when we did the chair. So it should be the same. Yeah, 40 is fine. And then I'm going to do width of 200. Maybe even 220. And then width is fine. So change it here to current folder. Let's go to meshes. Here, let's create a new one. This will be bed. Open it up and now you can accept and create this asset. Rename it. This will be bed_sm. Again, this is just a default one as well. I haven't found actually really nice asset in a fab for free that we can use for bed. So we're going to have to eventually make our own or something, or just pay not much money for some better ones if you like. Now we have this asset. Let's go to third person, blueprints, actors. And again, all the functionality is pretty much inside the chair, but I don't want to do the child of this blueprint. So instead, I'm just going to again right click on this base interactable actor, create child blueprint class, and we're going to start with a fresh one, which will be bed_s BP. Open it up. And now here what we need to do, again, we need to add scene. Add it to the static mesh. This static mesh will be bed. Don't change any position, rotation or anything. If you create it by default, this is what we want basically. And now for the bed, the animation goes basically from sitting position and then laying down. So technically we should start on the bottom, but that's not how it's done in most of the games. You have it usually, you sit down on the side of the bed and then lie down. So I want to do that. We're going to rotate the character while we playing the animation that lays down, and we're going to position this enter scene here. This is where the character will be, just on the side. And again, don't rotate it because it will screw up with your calculations later. So just leave it as a default. You can rotate the asset after. So scene will be somewhere here, and then what we need to add is one more static mesh. This one is to be default root, and this will be bed. Compile and save. No, I can actually add asset here as well, bed. And here on this one, we will just leave the collision as it is. On this one, we're going to do... we can do no collision or custom ones. We had... it will be better without collision, so let's do no collision. No collision. Compile and save. Now in the event graph, we can just go to chair. And from here, we can copy all this stuff that we have. So interact, in range and out of range. Copy it, paste it into bed. Right click on this is in range, create variable chair. Instead we will connect bed. Scene is the same. Set timer by function and visibility. This is all the same. Compile and save. For interact, I'll just leave it for now. Let's just also copy this function because we do have a timer, but we don't have a function. So copy is in front from chair and paste it here. This is one of those things that we probably need to create as a global function. That will be easier, but I think this might be the last asset that we need to check if we are in the front of it. So let's see. If we need it later, I will change it. For now, we do have bed created. Let's just test it out. So I'll remove this asset and the character. I'm going to drag out the bed. And you can see pick up none. And if I play it, I can actually sit down, same as the asset, because it's the same function. So that works well. Now we want to also lie down. So let's go to player. Few things here. So basically, until this animation, sit down is fine, but then we don't want to play the sit idle montage. So we want to check if this function is going to be for sitting or sleeping. So let's add a new input. And again, we could do enumerator, which we could select sit or sleep, but I'm just going to do it with a variable, and this will be sit. So if it's true, we want to sit. If it's false, we want to sleep, basically. Promote it to variable. This can be the same name. Add it here. And then let's go further down the function. So here, after the first montage, on completed, we want to do branch. And we want to check sit. If we want to sit, we will do this part on true. But if we don't want to sit, that means we want to sleep. So we need to play another montage. This will be not sleep, lying down. Lie down. And then second one will be on completed. So once the first one completes, we're going to play sleep idle, which will be looping. Also, I do have the start section name here. If you have the same, remove it. It won't do anything if you don't have sections, but it's not a good practice to have it there. So remove it. And now we're playing the montage. That is working fine. We're turning off the collision for the bed. So let's test it out. So we do have collision on the bed. I can like walk over it. And now when I place this animation, sit down, lay down, and I'm sleeping. You could see that there was a big jump from going from laying down to sleeping idle. So to change it, what we can do is go to animations again. I do have this sit and sleep folder, and for sleep idle, not this one, sorry, montage, sleep idle montage, I'm going to change the blend time to 0.75 maybe, and then blend time out will be 0.5 because that will be probably a little bit faster. So save it, and this way if I go to sleep, it goes like kind of smoothly to the different animation. So that's working all fine. Now you can see we sleeping, but we're sleeping in the wrong position. So what we want to do basically is just rotate the character as well, and we want to do it in a way that it won't look like it's teleporting and stuff again. So in the player, we can reuse this timeline and everything we have set up here. For that, let's drag this a little bit closer. Let's use all of these nodes. Just select it like this, so the mesh is not included and this is not included. And then we're going to collapse it to macro. And this will be called transform. And then inside this macro, we do have a couple of the inputs, but the alpha is the same, so we don't need alpha 2. We can just disconnect it, connect the alpha to this alpha, and remove the alpha 2. And same thing, we do have world location of the scene component, so remove the second one and connect this one here. Then we remove it, compile and save. We'll fix that in a second. This one will be seen, and this one can be alpha, that's fine. And if you need the output, which we probably don't, but we can just connect this one, we'll have an output. Go back to event graph. Now we will disconnect these two, and we already have a static mesh connected. So you can redirect this, delete this part, and this is much easier, and we can reuse it. And now one more thing we can set it up here, because at the moment you can change few variables here, but it will still be rotating on a timeline very quickly. It's still very snappy because we're not doing it smoothly. And the way we can do it, instead of the lerp rotator, we can use R for rotator and interp, which is interpolation 2. And you do this first one, and this does exactly the same thing, but you can actually change the speed of the animation. So let's just hold Control and connect the first one to here, right click, split it, and just connect the same variable X, Y, Z. Alpha is the same to delta time, and inter speed we can drag here to input, and we can set it so this will be interp speed, that's fine. And we can remove this and connect it here, and then we can do the same thing for vector. This time we need to do V for vector and interp 2, and again we're just going to connect this, split it, first one, second one, third one, and alpha goes to delta time, interp speed again we will connect from here, and this goes to location. Now, so let's say if we set interp speed to 1, it should be the same as it was before for our sitting down animation. So if I try here to sit, you can see I just slide in very quickly to the chair, I don't have a root motion enabled, or what happened? Lay down maybe, stand up, lay down. For some reason I don't have the root motion here. So lay down needs to be root motion as well. Let me just check sleep idle. Yeah, that one has it. So now, as you can see, if I teleport with the timeline to there, it goes very quickly as before. So interrupt speed 1 is fine. But then we could change it to like 0.1. And this is just to move towards the chair. So now when I stand a little bit further apart and press E, you can see it's much slower. So we can change that interrupt speed to whatever we want. But it's still only 1 second timeline, so it won't affect much. But what we want to do is position the player on the bed. And for that, let's create one more scene component. So we can just duplicate this one. And I'm going to call this sleeping scene or sleep scene. I'm going to reset the location, and then we don't want to move it on Z value, even though it's in the bed, but that's where the root will be, so you don't want to change that. We only want to rotate it this way 90 degrees, so minus 90 rotation. And then in the player, we also need to create this new input, which will be sleep scene. And that will be scene component, object reference. And now in the bed, we need to connect it. So here it will be sleep scene. And back in a player, we want to now copy the timeline. We can use the same one. And so we want to start rotating after we lay down. So move this down. Paste the timeline here. But also we don't want to do it on the beginning. We want to find the point in the animation where we want to start rotating. So open the lay down montage. And somewhere where we lift the legs so they don't go through the bed, somewhere here we want to start rotating, and then until here we will be rotating slightly. So I'm just going to do it here on the frame like 52, maybe like this, and then right click next to this notifies, add notify, montage notify. You can just rename it to rotate, doesn't really matter, but we have rotate. And then if we go back to player, we can just on notify begin. We'll play this timeline from start, and we need to get this macro, which is transform. But this time I'm going to create a new timeline that will take a little bit longer, because 1 second is a bit short to rotate, so it won't look very good. So on the timeline, we open it again, add track, add flow track. This one will be sleep rotate. We can change this length to 5 seconds. And then here I'm going to add key. This will be 0 and 0. Add one more key, and this will be value of 1, but in 3 seconds. Sorry, my bad. Let's change it to 3 seconds up here. So time 3 seconds and value 1. Compile and save. Let's go back to event graph, and now we're going to on update do this transform. Scene that we need to connect is this sleep scene. So wire going all the way across, I'm just going to redirect it slightly like that. And then what else we need to do? I'm just checking. One thing I forgot to do actually is remove this modify max stat. So if you have the same thing, I have put it in the description of the video, but obviously if you add the max stat, we also want to remove it after, because otherwise you just keep adding 20 regeneration until you are like immortal. So before I forget, just move it, do it here on completed, and modify it again by the same value, just minus. Back to this timeline. So now play from start. On update with transforming, alpha is the time, which is sleep rotate, 3 seconds. And in term speed, let's see what it's going to, I'm just going to change it to 0.1 here. So it's going to go very slow for 3 seconds. And that should be able to rotate the player. And then after we complete, we play the idle. Let's try it out. Right, so that's rotating, as you can see, but it's rotating position from the base. So what we need to do is just change the scene. So in the bed, let's go to viewport, change this sleep scene and move it down. I don't know, that's where the feet should be, so somewhere here. Compile and save. Now he sits down. Somewhere here he starts rotating from the animation. And then he goes down. Okay, this is a little bit too much maybe. So sleep scene, go here. And also I think maybe the speed needs to be like 0.25. I'll try. Because it was a little bit too slow. We want to like swing the legs up like that. Yeah, there we go. And then we're sleeping. Perfect. And now we want to also stand up. So what we need to do is in the player, we need to set up this variable is sitting, but let's rename it to is resting, because that will be for sleeping and sitting. And here on completed, we need to do is resting to true. I'm going to move this back so I don't have to overlap this. So just again, make sure this one goes on notify begin, and then on completed, you do have is resting true. And that way, if we are resting, we press an arrow, we will stop resting. Here we need to play different animations. So again, after this do once, we're going to get this sit, branch, and if it's true, it goes to the same one. If it's false, we're going to play montage, and this will be stand-up montage. Not stand-up montage, sorry. We don't have one created, so let's just duplicate lay down. Lie down, duplicate it. This will be what's the opposite of lie down? I don't know. Wake up. Wake up. Open it up. This will be playing with minus rate scale minus 1 point, maybe 2, so it's a little bit faster. Save it. And it will go backwards, obviously, so it will be standing up. Maybe even 1.4, otherwise it will take forever. So 1.4. Root motion. It does have a root motion, so right click, create animmontage. Let's go back to player, we will play it. So wake up, montage. And then on completed, it goes back here, but we also need to rotate the player back. So compile and save. And again, we need to rotate the character back to the position of the first scene. But let's set up the notify again. So wake up montage, open it up. And then, as you can see, maybe somewhere here he could start rotating. So next to notify, track, add notify, montage notify, and this again can be rotate, save it, close it, go back to player, on notify begin. We're going to add timeline, which is the same one, so copy it. And on notify begin, play from start, and on update we're going to get this transform. Scene now, if you don't want to promote it to variable, just drag it from the top, so it's the enter scene, which goes here. Alpha is the, why I don't have, alright, it only added it to this timeline, so I need to copy this timeline because it's the sleep rotate I want. I thought it's going to add to the same timeline, but it doesn't work like that. It's timeline 2. So on notify begin, play from start. This will be seed goes to alpha, interrupt speed we can do 0.3 maybe, again 0.25 as I said before, and then that will be on update. And on completed we can just play anime, or we don't have to, we can just go here. On completed we can go to this part, which will modify the max stat, check if this object is valid and reset the collision and turn off the resting. So that is the same. Now let me see if we're modifying stats here. We are not. So copy this part, paste it. We also modify stat when we're sleeping, maybe by, it's the same amount, it's fine. Compile and save. And now that should be all. So let's try to sleep. Sit down, sleep, and I'm sleeping. And now if I want to stand up, well, that was a little bit too fast. Rotate, and there was a bit of a gap because on the wake up we also need to set up the inertialization, so don't forget about that. Save it. And then the animation was a bit fast. Sleep rotate, maybe because this time was here to set to 0. Not sure if that's gonna affect anything. 0 speed, maybe 0.2, even though it should be the same. That is the wrong one I'm checking. 0.2, 0.25, this one on the bottom. 1, 0.25 alpha internet speed. Play from start and update, it should be fine. Seem to be a little bit too fast. Just play with this value of the interrupt speed. Maybe even if you do something very low, like 0.05, it should slow it down. So sleep. Sleeping. And then, yeah, that was slow enough. Right, so that's working fine. And now just last thing we can actually set up is the interact prompt. I want to do it in a different way because I realize we're casting quite a lot and it's a little bit pain in the ass. So what we're going to do for interact prompt to make it easier is let's open our blueprints, interfaces, interact BPI, add new one, new function. This will be change interact type. Input will be interact type enumerator. This one can be called interact type as well. Compile and save it. Now let's add the interface to our widgets to interact prompt, graph, class settings, and implemented interfaces interact BPI. Now compile and save, go to your interface and change interact type. And we do have a variable interact type, just set it here. Now compile and save. And instead of casting all the time, we can just go to event graph. And on begin play, we will get this interact prompt, get widget, which is the widget that is inside, that is the reference. And then we're going to send the message change interact type. And this will be, we can just create one for sleeping, but you know how to do that already, so just do sit for now. And this is much easier, it saves us a step, and it's just a better way of doing things. So you can see now I have a sit. Okay, one last test. I can probably just move the scene a little bit higher. I don't like that feed is closer to the edge than the head, so I'll change that. Everything else seems to be fine if you position your animation correctly and everything. So, and probably there was a little jump on the end, then I'm going to just go to bed, and that is because this scene is probably too close, so it actually, when it puts the root back to where it's supposed to be, then it overlaps with it, slightly jumps. And that is it for sleeping. So now we can rest, we can sit down, we can sleep, you can set up any asset, you can set up the inn, where you will have like innkeeper or something, and then put the bed against the corners. And yeah, that's pretty much it. In the next one as well, you will probably notice, but when you're sleeping, at the moment your character has open eyes. So we need to change that, but that will be the whole other section of doing the face animations, because this looks a little bit creepy. I don't know if you can see it very well, but yeah, he's just staring at you. I'll see you in the next video then. Bye!